Good afternoon. Thank you all for finding the time to join today's webinar. Fixed wing drones versus VTOL, what you need to consider before choosing. My name is Ron Piscula. I'm the digital marketing strategist here at SenseFly. And I'd like to take a moment now to introduce our other co-panelists here. We've got Gary LaCoy at SenseFly and Alex Wolf with Earl Dudley. Gentlemen.
Thanks, Ron. Just briefly want to introduce myself, Gary LaCoy. I'm Regional Manager for North America with SenseFly. I've been with the company for about 3.5 years. I've been working with SenseFly drones for about the last 6. Excited to be with you guys today and talk through this topic a bit, answer some questions for you. I think it'll be informative. I think these are just some additional information to kind of consider when you're thinking about what might be the right tool for the jobs that you most often are completing.
Hey everyone, I'm Alex. I work over here at Earl Dudley. I'm fairly new here, but I do GPS and UAV sales. And so I handle all trainings and demos. So anything in the photogrammetry world, I definitely can help you with that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. In just a few moments, we're going to open it up and hear from a few of our experts here within SenseFly. But before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items just so you know how to prepare for today's event. You can listen through your computer system as normal on these webinars, or if you'd prefer to join by phone, just hit the telephone button in the audio pane and the dial information will be displayed there for you. All attendees are going to be muted throughout the presentation, but we definitely want you guys to have the opportunity to submit some questions to us that we'll be able to address within the Q&A section towards the end of the presentation. Feel free to go ahead and stick those questions within the chat field down there and submit them to us during the video, and we'll be able to, like I had mentioned before, address them at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'd like to encourage you to stay with us throughout the presentation to the end where we'll have the live Q&A. We've got an exclusive offer that we're also going to be sharing with you on today's webinar as well. So be sure to stick around towards the end for that bit of detail. And with that, I'll turn it over to the folks at SenseFly.
One of the main discussion points when deciding between a traditional fixed-wing and VTOL capable fixed-wing drone is the takeoff and landing. It is often said that a VTOL drone can take off and land anywhere, and that by using VTOLs you can get the best of both worlds with safer takeoffs and landings, plus the longer range of a fixed-wing drone. But is this the whole story? There are a few points to consider here. Firstly, the wind. Often this is not fully explained on the specification sheet, and VTOL drones can often suffer when taking off in stronger wind conditions due to the aerodynamics of such a system. Additional motors and propellers and bigger and additional control surfaces are required to be able to take off and land, and all of these things significantly impact the aerodynamics of a drone. As a result of this, in windy conditions, VTOL drones can suffer and can end up being either unable to take off at all or can require significantly more space than is normally needed. This can eventually result in more space being needed than a fixed-wing drone like the EBX. Another point that is often mentioned is that vertical landings are safer than belly landings, meaning less damage for each flight. Again though, there are some other points to consider. For example, if the drone does not land perfectly straight, the potential for damage is considerably higher. That damage can be quite significant on a complex and heavy VTOL drone, whereas with the EBX, it was designed from the ground up to be capable of handling those belly landings over and over again, regardless of the terrain. Lastly, another point to consider is operating altitude. VTOL drones can often have a hard time with the takeoff and landing when the project altitude gets higher, in the mountains of South America for example. Some other drone manufacturers have had to resort to using modified propellers in order to handle the lower air density, and as a result of this and the lower air pressure, the battery consumption and therefore flight time can suffer significantly.
My name is Michael Blake. I'm part of the SenseFly product management team. I've been at SenseFly for 4.5 years. Hybrid systems are impressive in their capabilities in terms of payload carrying and also flight performance. It is, however, not completely true that they can take off and land wherever they want to. VTOL systems often do require sustainable clearances for landing zones and also takeoff to accommodate outside factors. So what are these outside factors? Wind gusts being one of these factors, or even turbulence that cause this type of common issue near obstacles, trees, buildings, etc., which can be very dangerous for VTOL type of units. As a result, a buffer is needed, usually within the excursion zone of the landing and takeoff, to add the safety element factor for this type of operation. Additionally, near obstacles, GPS signals can be impeded, causing positional errors that can increase the buffer zone needed for further operational landings and takeoff. Examples was at InterGeo in 2019, a leading VTOL demonstrator was unable to perform safe landings and takeoff within the defined takeoff and landing zone. At the same time, the EBX was able to conduct multiple flights and demonstrations within the same area under the exact same conditions as this VTOL drone was given to operate within. Another point to consider as well is the weight. Most VTOL drones differ between 4 to 8 kilos in weight, and then therefore are substitutes to different regulation factors. This can also have significant considerations as well when pushing towards aviation authorities in terms of operational near airports, or talking about beyond visual line of sight. Yes, this is something that's been brought up by a lot of our customers over the years. The EBX is our 5th generation of fixed wing mapping drone. We have learned many lessons from our customers who are operating in all around the world in different types of climates and environments, from stony to rocky, from hot to cold environments. These types of lessons have then accumulated into now what is the EBX design. For example, the underbody skin of the EBX is made of ruggedized polypropylene fiber composite, making it incredibly strong and robust to handle all these types of landing environments. For over 10 years now, Sunside drones have been conducting belly landings, meaning hundreds of thousands of flights all over the world. We've since one day focused on safe and lightweight mapping drones, which are critical for belly landing operations. For example, one of our customers was involved in some emergency mapping missions after the bombing of Beirut. Conditions were naturally very difficult and the terrain was very rough. Despite this, the EBX was able to land safely and successfully over many flights. It is difficult to say the exact area that you need to land, as it really varies from system to system between a VTOL or a fixed wing drone. However, it is a common misconception that a fixed wing always needs more space to land. For example, one comparable VTOL drone requires an area of 30 meters diameter for a clear landing, compared to the EBX, which also needs a 30-meter clear zone for landing, or even less with a steep landing functionality within our eMotion flight planning software. It is true that the approach path it can be limited by the directional for landing due to the wind and obstacles. However, the EBX is capable of landing with a safe crosswind from anything from 6 to 7 meters per second. Going back again for the example with InterGeo, this clear example was a situation where the EBX had sufficient space and was able to land safely, whereas the comparable VTOL drone alternative was not able to operate successfully within the parameters given to us. Again, this varies from drone to drone. It's difficult to say in the broad sense, but VTOL drones are necessarily more complex, which often leads to more difficult and expensive repairs. For example, the EBX has 3 moving components, where a traditional VTOL would have 4 to 6 to 8 moving components, which magnitude increases the risk of failure. Most VTOL drone manufacturers are in the early stages of setting up their support and service networks, so this infrastructure is still being built in the background. Again, this can lead to more expensive and long delays due to shipping logistics. From an end user experience, we know these kinds of delays are critical as it deeply affects the deadlines and operational sustainability for the end clients. Additionally, more current VTOL drones are built to try and combat aerodynamics and constraints. As a result, they often sacrifice the reliability of the airframe. This further complicates repairs and means you can end up replacing an entire center body for a simple crack or damaged piece on the drone. In other words, surveyors in the field usually cannot simply repair the drone on site, which leads to more shipping, logistics, and overall delays for the end product. With 10 years of experience and 5 generations of drones, the EBX itself was designed around the feedback from our end customers and users to be able to develop a drone which can be quickly and easily repairable in situ. We know accidents happen, and we want to ensure the fastest possible turnaround for all our customers on site. With the EBX modular design, this means that even if the drone has to go to a service center, the repairs and the turnaround should be extremely fast. In a practical case, 1 day. We have over 85 service centers globally and first-class support network that can help you get flying quickly as soon as possible. To help us with this, many parts of the drone are serviceable in the field by the end user. For example, the wings, pitot tube, vertical surfaces, etc. We focus on the modularity design for our end customers, as it is critical that deadlines are met and that the drone can be repaired as fast as possible. Not all flights are done in nice conditions. We understand users don't always have the perfect conditions to fly in and will sometimes need to fly in locations that are difficult for any drone to fly in. Simply put, the aerodynamics of any flying system, whether it be fixed wing or helicopter, suffer in high altitude and high temperature conditions. Without getting into too deep, this is caused by a lower atmospheric pressure and affects everything from a DJI Mavic all the way to a Boeing 747. That said, rotary systems, whether it be helicopter, VTOL drones or multirotors, suffer even more. Typically, the solution to this aerodynamic problem is more airflow. So for a fixed wing drone, you simply fly faster, which is relatively easy to do. For a rotary system, this means motors all have to run harder, faster, decrease efficiency, and also the battery life. Once again, the added weight and complex aerodynamics of a VTOL can compound this issue. What this means for the end user is that mapping in tougher conditions such as high altitude or high temperatures can be extremely difficult or potentially not possible with a standard commercial VTOL system. This affects all users who consider flying in tougher conditions around any mountainous terrain or any hotter desert environments. For example, the mines in South America, some of which are above 4,000 meters in altitude. Flying a VTOL drone can require special hardware changes and suffer reduced flight times.
VTOL drones are a fantastic new development in the drone space, but like most new technologies, there are key advantages and disadvantages. It is really important to understand these points when deciding on which drone you should buy. For example, the drone you buy should fit the types of projects you are primarily working on. A sports car is an amazing piece of engineering, but it would make a terrible survey vehicle due to the lack of storage space and poor handling of rough terrain. VTOL drones have the advantage of being able to take off and land vertically, but this comes at the expense of size, weight, and complexity. To make a drone hover requires a huge amount of energy, and as a result, VTOL drones require bigger and more powerful motors, which require bigger and heavier batteries. This in turn adds more weight, requiring a stronger, tougher body, and even again, bigger and more powerful motors. What this means in practice is that to achieve the same flight time and coverage, a VTOL fixed wing needs to be significantly bigger, heavier, and more mechanically complex than a comparable traditional fixed wing. These things need to be considered when planning your battery management, site access, and ongoing maintenance. For example, when traveling into the field, how many batteries do you need to bring? How will you charge them? How much equipment will you need to carry? And how will you transport it to the mission site?
Hi, my name is Benjamin Pinguet. I'm a product manager and I've been working at SenseFly for 7 years. So VTOL drones are heavier by design. VTOL is a type of drone where they try to combine the capability of vertical takeoff while keeping the capability and efficiency of a fixed wing. So they had to do compromise and they had to integrate more hardware in their drone, like extra engine, more servo, more flight controllers, some even have landing gears. So you have a lot more weight to start from. So therefore, you have like a catch-22 loop where you try to gain efficiency, you try to have this good sensor, but you keep gaining weight to be able to do that vertical and landing part. So therefore, you have a system that is more complex and is heavier by design. So in terms of efficiency, how much coverage you can achieve, you can notice that VTOL and EBX have similar capability. So it's really down to the weight. The EBX weight about 1.3 kilogram, whereas VTOL can go up to 4 to 5 kilogram. So this is a huge difference between the two, especially when the weight is an important consideration for your operation. Another aspect is the vertical takeoff and landing phases. So the VTOL require a lot of energy during these phases, and this can have a significant impact on the efficiency you can achieve. And this is even more true in difficult environment conditions. So if you're on high altitude, if you have high temperature, or if the wind is strong, this is going to affect even more your efficiency. So with the EBX system, we've created the drone, the system that is very easy to use. So first of all, you only need 3 minutes to assemble the drone, install the battery and the payload, and be ready to fly. It's not necessarily the case with VTOL system, where you have more complexity, more assembly time, so you have more physical activity to do to be ready to fly. Looking at the software, it's also a very important element of your efficiency. With eMotion, you know you're going to have the best-in-class flight planning software with 10 years of experience. We've put in there the right tools, the right capability, while keeping a simple and easy-to-use interface. If you need to be even more efficient, eMotion can offer the capability to do multiple drone flights. So you can multiply, double, triple your flight efficiency while still being safe. Following the data capture, you have the post-flight step, which is just as important as the data capture. So with eMotion again here, what we've done is that we have an entire workflow that really is simple. So you can just take the SD card out of the drone after the flight. If you are using PPK, the images are already geotagged, so you can start your processing straight away. And for the PPK processing, it's also integrated in eMotion, so you have one interface from data capture to start off your processing. Last point is about field repair. So as you know, rough landing can happen, and the EBX is a system that is easy to replace, that has the capability to be replaced and repaired on site. So you can simply swap a wing, you can tape also if necessary to be able to finish the job, because you might not have the opportunity to come and finish it another day. Okay, so the first thing to consider is how are you going to access the site. So with the EBX, you have a system that fits inside a backpack. That means you can operate your drone even from a remote access area easily. You don't have heavy cases, multiple cases to carry around, and that can be a huge advantage. The point to consider is also the amount of equipment to carry. VTOL typically require to have 2 batteries per flight. So the logistic involved in doing a very large-scale mission can be tremendous with a VTOL. You need to multiply the number of battery and charger and things to carry around. With the EBX, you have much more flexibility and a much more transportable system. Also, you always need to have some spare with you when you're going to fly. You might need to do some small repairs, swap on the field. And with the size of the EB, you can easily carry all the necessary equipment with you that fit into a small box. We heard about an extreme example where a customer, when he moved to a VTOL system, needed to purchase a new field vehicle in order to fit all the extra cases required for the system. Another point is the reliability of the data. I mean, it happened to all of us. We go to the field, we complete the mission, we take all the images, and then we realize there was something wrong with the camera. Or even worse, sometimes you find it out when you're back in the office. So it's really important to have a system that have a full hand, full controllability on the payload. And the VTOL system typically integrate off-the-shelf camera. That means they do not have a full control on the payload. SenseFly used to do that in the past also to use a shelf camera, but now we've moved to a more integrated camera. This means we have full control of the pictures. We know when the payload is working or not. We can ensure all the pictures are taken. We can ensure that the geotagging is functioning correctly. So therefore, when the drone lands, you know that you have all the data you need. Software is a key part of the EBX system. And many customers tell us that what triggered the decision to go for a SenseFly product is the capability of emotion. And we have 10 years of development and 1 million flights to back it up. So first of all, we have a fully featured software. And we've built that really from customer feedback. I can give you the example. A month ago, a customer came to us having the idea to improve the efficiency of the tilting soda to really do one-line corridor and be able to perform more type of mission. And this sounded interesting for us, and we've been able to develop that feature in just a month, so the customer can get more of the system. And that's exactly what the flexibility we have with emotion. We completely own the software. It's a custom design. It's designed at SenseFly, and therefore we can optimize every bit of it. It's also true for the firmware and the other element of the drone. Speaking about, for example, the autopilot, most of the systems use open source ecosystem, which means they do not have full control of all the elements. It means also that they are not optimized for the element they use. So they might save some development time at the beginning, but they cannot achieve the same level of integration and efficiency we obtain at SenseFly, having a full control of the entire ecosystem. And if you look at other companies, for example, Apple, it's exactly what they are doing as well. They control everything from the battery, the processor, the element, the firmware and software, and therefore they are also able to offer to their customer an ecosystem that is coherent from beginning to the end. So the question you need to ask yourself before choosing a system, a VTOL or fixed wing, is what is your typical flight scenario you're going to be into? So ask yourself about what are the space available at the area where you're going to operate the drone. Is it limited? Is it open? That's an important point to consider. And VTOL can provide a solution in the situation where space is very limited. However, there's also more points to consider, like the environmental condition. Is it a very windy location? Is it at high altitude? And also, very importantly, what are the regulations at the area you're going to operate the drone? This can have a very strict limitation on the system you will be able to operate. So this can reduce the advantages of the VTOL can offer. In all other scenarios, consider the pros and cons as discussed today. So the weight of the system, the payload capability, the ease of use, the repairability. So with the EB, we have a lot of great advantages there, as mentioned. And choosing a VTOL also have its advantages, but think about all the elements you might be giving up choosing this type of system.
As previously mentioned, VTOL drones are generally bigger and heavier by nature. There is also the question of ongoing performance and maintenance when compared to a smaller and lighter traditional fixed wing such as the EBX. As a result of this, traditional fixed-wing drones have a much easier time getting approvals from civil aviation authorities, such as VTOLs, or a less restrictive category for the incoming EU regulations. As much as drone manufacturers like to say that drones do not crash, the reality is accidents do happen, and aviation authorities, insurance companies, and risk analysts know this. A simple, lightweight drone will always have an easier regulatory path than a larger, more complex one. So, if you don't need the sports car for its top speed, you should always consider if it's worth the downsides. Another point that is often noted for VTOL drones is that they are typically bigger to begin with. They are also often paired with larger, higher resolution cameras. This is undoubtedly a positive sounding point, but a higher resolution camera does not necessarily translate to better quality, better coverage, or even better efficiency. In fact, the majority of competitor drones are using off-the-shelf cameras, and while these cameras are fantastic cameras, they are designed for photographers and not photogrammetrists. The result of this is additional weight from the extra unused parts of the camera, heavy lenses that are optimized for general photography rather than photogrammetry, and cameras that are not as integrated with the drone's autopilot. All of this results in a loss of overall efficiency when looking at flights within the typical allowed flight altitudes. Additionally, while these photos might look great on their own, the additional size and quantity required can result in a less efficient overall process and can also cause errors with the processing, such as a failure to match tie points or even a failure to reconstruct the dataset.
I'm Gary LeQuay with SenseFly. I've been a regional manager here for North America with SenseFly for about the last 3.5 years and been selling SenseFly products for about the last 6 years in total. SenseFly's approach to regulations has always really been about safety and ease of use. We try to maximize what the fixed wing platform does really well, which is fly for a long time. And to be able to do that, we need to be able to be lightest in class. And so over the past 10 years, we've been working closely with our reseller partners across the globe to make sure that we are up to date and informed about local regulations with the governing bodies there. And including we've been able to get waivers to operate beyond line of sight in the EU and Canada and Brazil, and even have permissions to do beyond line of sight flights in Canada and Brazil at this time. We have a full team on board that helps us to stay abreast of all of the governing body regulations and rules across the globe, and to really make sure that our customers are aware when there might be any changes coming down the pipeline. Well, why does it matter? Well, drones are becoming more and more popular, and what we've seen is a lot of our customers are implementing drones, of course, to increase efficiency in data collection, but also to minimize some risk to their personnel, putting them in some dangerous places at times. And being able to minimize risk for our customers is a big deal. And so allowing them to be legally less risky with following regulations is something that's very important to us. It also allows us maybe to access sites for our customers that they wouldn't be able to otherwise with drones that are potentially heavier. So having lightest in class drones helps us to minimize the risk from that perspective as well. And of course, following the rules and being compliant with regulations creates less incidents, and that really allows the industry to grow as a whole. Do people follow the regulations? Yes, they do. Of course, you're always going to have people that are, going to do what they want no matter what. I mean, we're supposed to wear our seatbelts everywhere in the car, but there's certainly people that don't do that, and so it's always going to happen. However, as drones are becoming more and more popular, there's better and better regulation to be able to monitor and track where drones are and what they're doing. The new remote ID stuff from the FAA is a great example of this, of being able to minimize that risk a little bit of folks that might not want to follow the rules. Not to mention there's, most insurance companies won't even cover folks who don't operate legally, plus the criminal penalties for operating as you're not supposed to as well. There's also the larger companies who are looking to implement drone programs internally, need to minimize their risks for their insurance purposes. So they need to have good standard operating procedures and pilots who are following the rules. And even if they contract out, they're not going to work with somebody that's not following the rules. So we understand here at SenseFly that the legal landscape can be a little bit tricky to navigate in different parts of the world, but we really think it's important to promote that safe and responsible flying, again, to be able to maximize what our customers can do and really help the industry to grow. Where does SenseFly fit in with the new FAA regulations? Well, we're part of the ASTM standardization body to be able to follow the developments that are happening in that space. We're also able to have a broadcast remote ID solution in place in Europe already, and we're working on developing one to be compliant in the US as well. Apart from that, the foam structure and the lightweight nature of our fixed wing platform makes it a great candidate for operations over people, which we've seen in a lot of use cases across the world. How can regulations negatively affect the projects? Well, the regulatory landscape can be really complicated, convoluted, tough to figure out. And so that right there can cause people time, money, trying to figure out some of those things. On the flip side of that, we've seen that operators who are compliant with regulations, who take the time to follow the rules and do things the proper way, often have an advantage in winning jobs and bids over some of those other operators who maybe don't do quite as much on that side. Beyond that, we've seen that oftentimes the flight technology really leads the regulations. For example, the beyond line of sight flying that's capable with a lot of drones is currently hampered and hindered by some of the regulations. So that can have an economic effect on your project if you're not able to get it done as quickly or as efficiently as you might otherwise be able to. And so that's why it's critical to have technology that's already prepared for this regulatory framework, like the EBX platform. It gives you a jump start on unlocking the full potential of this technology and can avoid some of those pitfalls that might happen in this regulatory framework. What does this have to do with VTOL drones? Well, in theory, not that much, but in practice, there's quite a bit to go on there. Typically, vertical takeoff and landing drones are quite a bit heavier and larger than traditional fixed-wing drones. And so in Europe, for example, we've seen that SenseFly, the EBX system, fits into the low-risk open category there, which allows it to operate over people in specific instances. Some of the heavier drones outside of that category are really limited to what they can do, sometimes getting only as close as 150 meters to being able to fly over people. And across the board globally, what we've seen is these regulatory bodies tend to prefer drones that are lighter weight, which minimizes that risk a bit. Typically, these VTOL manufacturers and drones is a little bit newer technology, and so some of those companies are newer as well and just don't have a lot of the quantifiable historical data that backs up the safety record of their systems like SenseFly does. And so that can make it a little bit more challenging for them to have a little bit of influence in with those regulatory bodies. Now, while there's certainly use cases for VTOL technology, overcoming the hurdles in the regulatory space is something that's yet to be seen yet from that technology. What's coming next for SenseFly in regards to regulations? Well, we've got that low-risk open category certification that we're working towards as soon as possible, so that can be ready to go. We're also getting some guidance from SORA on beyond visual line of sight operations to be able to get those off the ground soon. And then we continue to work with governing bodies around the world, including the FAA, EASA, to make sure that the regulations in place are reasonable, realistic, and can really help our customers take advantage of the technology. And then, of course, there's always a couple secrets up our sleeves, some exciting things that we're working on in the background that we'll be able to share a little bit more about here shortly in the future. But it's going to be great opportunities for our customers with our products.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es José María Marchetti, yo soy el manager regional para Latinoamérica de SenseFly. Estamos acá con la gente de Geocom de Chile, nuestro distribuidor oficial en el territorio. Un gusto tenerte con nosotros, Óscar Moreno. Óscar es un gran experto en drones, trabaja con Geocom como ingeniero de aplicaciones desde 2014 y ha pasado por muchas etapas dentro de la empresa trabajando con diferentes marcas, ¿cierto, Oscar? Ahora vamos a aprovechar todo ese conocimiento tuyo y realmente queremos empezar haciéndote algunas preguntas como fundamentalmente cuándo empezaron, cómo fue ese tiempo de transitar los primeros drones de ala fija que ustedes comercializaron, con toda esa experiencia, cómo fueron esos primeros años.
Hola José, un gusto reunirnos con usted. Sí, la verdad nosotros desde el año 2013 estamos trabajando con sistemas aéreos no tripulados, en ese entonces solamente de ala fija, y claro, fue un periodo de aprendizaje bastante importante, con hartas pruebas, errores y aprendizaje, todo eso. Partimos y hemos ido evolucionando a lo largo de los años, trabajando con diferentes marcas, como tú bien dices, por lo tanto hemos recapitulado y hemos adquirido mucha experiencia en todos estos años.
Seguro. Y bueno, en ese tránsito de las distintas marcas que ustedes utilizaron, que sabemos que empezaron trabajando con drones de ala fija, con los primeros que hubo en el mercado, y en algún momento también comercializaron importantes marcas de drones VTOL, de despegue y aterrizaje vertical. Cuéntanos cómo fue esa experiencia con los drones de despegue y aterrizaje vertical.
Sí, efectivamente, trabajamos alrededor de 2 a 3 años con equipos VTOL. Fue una buena experiencia. En realidad la operación es muy similar a los equipos de ala fija en términos de planificación de vuelo. Claro, si uno pudiese hacer una comparativa entre ambos, ¿verdad? El flujo de operación en planificación de vuelo es bastante similar, por ejemplo, en el caso de Motion, que es un software bastante amigable, intuitivo, para el desarrollo de una correcta planificación, son muy similares. Y obviamente lo que se desmarca uno de otro es el tipo de aterrizaje, en el caso del IBI con el vientre, ¿verdad? Y en el caso de los VTOL con despegue y aterrizaje vertical.
¿Cuáles serían para ti las limitaciones más importantes de los drones VTOL?
La verdad es que en definitiva, al comparar un equipo de ala fija convencional con un tipo VTOL, son bastante similares. Yo en realidad, cuando hablaría de limitantes más a más importantes, ¿no es cierto?, tienen relación cuando uno va a realizar un levantamiento con una topografía muy abrupta, en un sector muy reducido de operación, ¿no es cierto?, en donde por un tema de seguridad operacional uno más bien no utiliza la fija y se inclina más por un multirotor, principalmente por los giros que realiza un equipo tanto VTOL o a la fija convencional.
Claro. Sí, luego tenemos todos los temas de legislación que a veces en Chile, por lo que yo sé, no son de tanto peso, ¿cierto? Y por eso les han permitido, digamos, trabajar un poco más con drones VTOL. Nosotros en Latinoamérica tenemos una experiencia grande en cuanto a temas de legislación y hay otros países que son más rígidos y por eso ahí se torna un poco más grande esa ventaja que tú no estás mencionando, pero es interesante escuchar tu experiencia, por supuesto. Y hace justamente menos de 2 años que comenzamos esta relación comercial con Sensefly. Para mí fue una gran satisfacción tener a Geocom dentro de la familia Sensefly porque bueno, sabemos de la importancia y relevancia que tienen en Chile. Y cuéntame, ¿cuáles fueron quizás las principales razones por las cuales Geocom decidió dar ese gran paso que fue firmar con nosotros un acuerdo comercial y dejar las otras compañías de drones VTOL?
Exacto, mira, una de los beneficios que nosotros encontramos muy importantes en relación a Sensefly, ¿no es cierto? Uno de esos es el tiempo de vuelo extendido del equipo, lo cual facilita y nos permite aumentar la productividad, ¿no es cierto?, de nuestros clientes. El peso, como tú bien dices, de repente, obviamente, tener un equipo mucho más liviano torna una operación segura en el caso de algún incidente, ¿no es cierto? Al ser un equipo mucho más livianito,
Claro.
los daños son menores. Bueno, y un punto yo creo que es fundamental de todos es la modularidad del equipo. De repente nos pasaba con otros equipos en donde un cliente, si llegase a tener algún tipo de incidente, los tiempos de espera para la reparación del equipo, ¿no es cierto?, se tornaban muy extensos. En el caso del IBI, al ser un equipo modular, en realidad, ante alguna falla, ¿no es cierto?, identificando bien el problema, bastaba con ir reemplazando ciertos tipos de módulos, ¿no es cierto?, para que el equipo pudiese entrar en operación nuevamente. Yo creo que ese es un punto fundamental.
Claro, perfecto. Sí, sí, se entiende y realmente es un avance muy grande dentro de nuestras plataformas. Y otros problemas que se te ocurran, sean presentes o de futuro para los drones VTOLs dentro de lo que es el mercado de drones, ¿cuáles serían si tú tuvieses que pensar en ellos?
O sea, como conversábamos anteriormente, yo creo que una de las principales desventajas podría ser el tema del peso, por la
Claro.
regulación, que hoy en día están mucho más restrictivas los permisos para el uso de sistemas aéreos no tripulados, en donde el peso excesivo de repente puede generar un problema a futuro.
Sí, sí, es muy cierto esto que dices, Oscar, y nosotros tenemos, bueno, en SenseFly equipos de gente dedicados a seguir todo el tema de legislación y regulaciones, porque, como tú dices, en algún momento, más tarde o más temprano, tiene una relevancia significativa. Otra pregunta, quizá la última para ir cerrando. ¿Cuál sería la principal razón que te hace a ti recomendarle a un cliente el uso de un IBX con el sistema lineal de aterrizaje y de lanzamiento frente a un VTOL? ¿Cuál es la gran ventaja que tú dices, mira, ¿sabes por qué tienes que usar un IBX? ¿Por qué sería?
Perfecto, mira, como te comentaba, la mayoría de nuestros clientes prioriza mucho la productividad, sobre todo cuando tienen que realizar levantamientos muy extensos. Y en ese sentido también es una de las grandes potencialidades que tiene el IBX, que es su productividad, con sus baterías de larga duración, lo cual en conjunto con los sensores muy bien desarrollados como la SOA 3D, aumenta mucho la productividad en un vuelo. Entonces, cuando tenemos un cliente que en realidad va a realizar vuelos muy extensos, ¿no es cierto?, y obviamente no va a realizar vuelos en lugares muy estrechos, no tiene ningún problema en utilizar el IBX y
Claro.
contar con todas sus bondades y beneficios que tiene trabajar con ese equipo en términos de productividad.
Sí, es muy interesante, Oscar, que estés usando la palabra productividad y voy a aprovechar de agregar algo que creo que vas a estar de acuerdo. La facilidad de preparación de un vuelo y de tener la posibilidad de hacer varios vuelos durante el día, esa productividad diaria que tiene un IBX frente a otros sistemas, ¿cierto? Porque muchas veces simplemente se comparan brochure con brochure, catálogo con catálogo, ¿cierto? Y quizás todo puede parecer bastante similar, pero cuando vas a campo y la productividad del IBX resulta 2, 3 veces mayor que otros sistemas similares, VTOL, ahí es donde está la gran ventaja. Creo que esa palabra que utilizaste de productividad, cuando la usamos como productividad diaria o por semana, más allá de lo que es un vuelo en sí, es donde tiene más significación, ¿cierto?
Absolutamente, en definitiva, nosotros con el IBX, como te menciono, nos llevamos una grata sorpresa en términos de productividad, porque nos sorprendió mucho. En realidad, yo a modo personal nunca había volado con un equipo de ala fija 1 hora, 1 hora 10. Obviamente uno siempre trata de dejar un
Sí.
rango de seguridad operacional, ¿no es cierto? Pero volar 1 hora, 1 hora 10, yo por lo menos nunca antes había tenido esa experiencia. Por lo tanto, obviamente fue muy sorprendente para nosotros.
Seguro, seguro. Y cuando puedes hacer varios de esos vuelos en un solo día, la productividad es enorme. Así que bueno, Oscar, ha sido un momento muy agradable compartir contigo esta conversación. Esperemos que sea de utilidad para otros usuarios y distribuidores en todo el mundo. Así que bueno, te dejo con un abrazo muy grande, muchos saludos para todos y espero pronto visitarlos.
Perfecto, un abrazo, que estés todo bien por ahí.
Gracias, Oscar.
Hasta luego.
All right, thank you guys again for being with us today on the webinar. I appreciate you guys, learning a little bit from the video that we shared. I hope it was beneficial for everyone. I want to take a couple minutes and just do a little bit of housekeeping stuff. Again, please, you can still enter your questions into the question box there. We'll be happy to answer them for you. We've got a couple that have come in that we will address here momentarily. As Ron mentioned at the beginning, though, I did want to mention the promotion that we have, the special offer for our friends that have joined on the webinar today. So essentially what we're going to do is anybody that purchases an EBX system from now until the end of the year will get a free certified operator training. So that's valued at about $1,200. And so we want to offer that to you guys for getting on this webinar and learning a bit. You can reach out to us, sensefly.com, or our partners at Earl Dudley there as well. They'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have. So to get started here, Alex, were there any questions that you saw come through that you wanted to address quickly?
Yeah, I had a question come in regarding the landing application in which the EBX offers. Cool thing about the EBX, they give you two different solutions for landing. The one being a traditional linear landing, comes in more of an airplane style, but the other cool feature that it offers is called a steep landing. It allows you to land in a kind of a tighter environment. If you were in a little bit windier of an environment, you can use this steep landing because it provides the, it allows the EBX to land in about a 15 feet area. The eMotion software does allow you to center your home point, which allows you to set that 15 feet area. So the EBX does offer that steep landing, which is kind of a feature that even some of our customers that use older EB applications aren't aware of. So it's a newer feature, kind of a hidden feature that people do like when they do upgrade to the EBX or get into the EBX platform as a new customer.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. I think that's something that we've really been able to see with the EBX platform. I actually just watched a video today that a customer had posted on LinkedIn of an EBX launch. And you could tell there was a nice stiff breeze blowing towards this young lady as she launched. And I mean, the drone went almost vertical as it was taking off. It was actually quite impressive. Good to see. I think it was from Latin America, so it was great to see that. Let's see some other questions that we've got here that I want to touch on briefly. We talked a lot about regulations. Can you already fly BVLOS in the US, or are there specific applications already approved? Let me touch on that one briefly. So technically, not everybody can fly BVLOS in the US. There are some waiver processes that you can go through with the FAA to be able to do some of those things. We do have customers that have done beyond line of sight flights all over the world and in the US as well. In addition to beyond line of sight, also operations over people. So we have been able to get those waivers. If you have questions about doing that sort of thing, you can feel free to reach out to us separately, and we'll let you know about it. Anything that we can share on those applications, we're happy to help you there as well. Let's see what else we've got here. Alex, maybe this one would be a good one for you. It says, what are some of the experiences that your customers have had flying EBX in varying weather conditions in the US? Have you seen any kind of experience with weather or with different difficult situations of flying the EBX, Alex?
Yeah, so we have a couple customers that fly near the Gulf. Since we're in Alabama, we're somewhat near the ocean. So typically higher winds come off of the coast, and they don't have any issues with taking off and landing in the wind coming off the coast. We have another customer that does fly solar farms, so a lot of dust, debris that does get into the air. It handles it perfectly fine. With the repairability of the pitot tube, they are able to replace or fix their pitot tube right there in the field. So the downtime is like a few minutes, if that. So we do have a lot of customers that do get into some dicey situations given the weather. But the eMotion platform does give you the ability to respond in seconds if you were to get into a situation. So we do have a few customers that do handle, I guess, tough environments.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. Let's see what else have we got here. Just had another one come in asking about, will SenseFly do like its competitors in the future and offer VTOLs? Short answer is we don't really get into too much of that stuff. We've always got things cooking and working in the background of things that we're trying to make sure that our customers' needs are met. I think what we're focused on right now is being able to maximize what fixed wing drones do best. And a lot of that is, beyond line of sight flying, operations over people, really high accuracy data, flying in tough conditions. And so that's kind of what our focus is right now. I think that there's, we tried to be as impartial as possible with our presentation today. Obviously, we want everybody to go out tomorrow and buy a fixed wing drone, and preferably a SenseFly fixed wing drone. So you can't really separate yourself from that, but really try to get past comparing brochures and spec sheets and focus on some of these other questions around actual operations and operability of the systems to see kind of what makes more sense for your business and the types of jobs that you do regularly. For some of you, it might be a VTOL system that works best. There are some applications for fixed wing that just don't work. Extreme example, if you're trying to take off and land on a boat, maybe don't take the EB out there that day, right? Might be a different option for you. Extreme example, but you get where I'm going with this stuff. Let's see what else have we got here. How can I request a live demo for SenseFly products? Alex, maybe I'll let you touch on that one.
Yeah, so Earl Dudley in particular does offer live demos. We've actually set up our own training area that I really do like to use with customers. And what we use is it allows us to give you different situations that you might experience in the field. So to give you a little bit more experience that way. But we also offer training where we will come to you, kind of fly a site in which you are familiar with. That way we can give you more of an experience that you will experience every day. And then we offer do webinars as well, so we can go over different applications that way as well.
Good, thanks, Alex. What's a good email address for you, Alex? If people want to reach out and get in touch, how can they contact you guys at Earl Dudley?
So my email is awolfe, that's WOLFE at earldudley.com. You can email me directly there. Or you can reach out via our phones. I'm always on call, and we can set something up in short notice if you need to. So just let me know.
Awesome, thanks, Alex. In addition to that, you can always go through the sensefly.com website, view request a demo or find a dealer near me. Let us know where you're located, and Alex will personally ride his bicycle all over the country to do an EBX demo for you, I promise.
Whatever it takes, whatever it takes.
That's right, good. Let's see what else we got here. Just maybe two more questions that I've seen come up. What happens if a crash occurs with the EB? Can you talk a little bit about the durability? Okay, I was trying to spell that one out, durability. So what happens if a crash occurs? Well, essentially, we talked about it a little bit in the video that the EB is a modular sort of system. So there's parts that are field repairable and field replaceable. For example, the pitot tube. If you have an issue with the pitot tube, you'll actually be notified in the flight software that there could be a potential issue with the pitot tube before you get too far gone there, and you're able to actually change out the pitot tube in the field. Simple 2 screws, pop it in, pop it out, and you're ready to go. Again, kind of durability things. I think we've seen customers that have been using EBs for years and years and years. Particularly with the EBX platform, your recommended scheduled maintenances are every 100 hours of flight, that's quite a lot of flight. I mean, you think a typical flight, I think, is not a full hour, but you're doing flight after flight after flight. It adds up, and every time you do one of those 100-hour services, you're essentially getting back a completely refreshed body of your drone, and so they can last for years and years. We definitely have customers that are still flying from 2013, 2012, the same EB Classic units, one of these guys that you see behind me here, and have been using them for years without a problem. We mentioned in the video a bit that they're built for that durability, right? That's why we make them out of that expanded polypropylene foam, is that they're made to absorb the impact that can happen on those belly landings. Let's see what else we've got here. Will the SenseFly utilize the RTK capabilities during landing? So that's a good question. So essentially, the RTK capabilities of the drone are not for drone positioning; they're for data accuracy. So RTK and PPK are available on the EBX platform, which is something a lot of our competitors don't offer. So you do have the option to do RTK and PPK, but that's only for data correction. For landing accuracy, what we actually use is there's a small LiDAR sensor on the bottom of the drone that doesn't collect data, but it's meant for positioning, so it can tell how far above the ground it is when it's coming into land. It's using that in conjunction with all of the other sensors and instruments on the drone to determine, am I where I'm supposed to be at the planned landing location? Thanks for that question. Total weight of the EBX if you're carrying it out in the field. So, operationally now the EBX comes standard with a backpack. And so a backpack with the drone in it, with your batteries, with a sensor, and with a laptop is 22 pounds. So it's really easy to strap on your back, carry around, get out into the field. It's easy to get on and off of planes, which I've found really, really helpful. And you're not taking up a ton of space in your rig when you're trying to get on and off the job site. There's usually a ton of other equipment and gear that you're gonna have to haul around with you also. And so the EBX isn't taking up very much space there. And I think that's all of the questions that I've seen come through. We're about out of time here anyways. Thank you guys again for joining with us today. I really do appreciate it. If you've got additional questions, I'd encourage you to reach out to us at sensefly.com. Get in touch with Alex, Wolf at earldudley.com. You can follow us on social media as well. It's at Sensefly, and visit us there and see kind of what we're up to and what we've got going on. Thank you guys again for taking the time out to join us today, and we really look forward to having you again. Alex, any final words before we finish up here?
I appreciate everybody stopping by. I appreciate all the questions, and just let me know if you need any assistance.
Thanks, Alex. We appreciate you guys. We hope you have a great rest of the afternoon, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any more questions. If there's things that popped up that we didn't get a chance to answer live here, we'll be able to run through and answer them offline as well. So thank you guys again. A recording will be sent to you in the next day or two. So if you registered for the webinar, or even if you didn't get a chance to attend, you'll be able to see that. So thank you guys again. We appreciate you joining us. Have a great one.